expensive.
Thank you much.
Thank the gentleman, and now you have 5 minutes to our colleague from Virginia, Mr. Bob Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of our witnesses. Thank you particularly, Mr. Epstein, for your incredible leadership and expertise on this issue. And I just have a couple comments on the EVs from my friend Mr. Grothman's questions. But EVs are the biggest hoax since climate change generally, or man-made climate change, by the way. And I know that everybody even on the panel may not agree with me on that. But the battery components and how they're constructed and the environmental impact, where we get the batteries from, the danger of the explosions and fires and so forth that come from electric vehicles, the weight of the vehicles that are 50% heavier than gas-powered vehicles, and the fact that the roads and the parking garages across the country could not handle EVs if we were all driving them. To Ms. Jackson's point, that almost everyone who has an EV, it's their second or their third vehicle, their extra vehicle when they can putter around town because they don't want to drive it across the country because it's impractical, and it's incredible. What a hoax forced upon the American people, and an egregious abuse of power by the administration to even think that they would have the right or should have the right to tell Americans what kind of vehicles they can own or that they can drive. It's incredible that the other side promotes and supports that, number one, and that the American people, to some degree, have surrendered their sovereignty, their independence, their freedom to have the government tell us what kind of vehicle we drive, and it's not even in our best interest if we were all to succumb or surrender to that. Mr. Epstein, you often talk about the concept of energy poverty, or the difficulty of some people, and Ms. Jackson has spoken to this as well, to afford the most basic of their energy needs, whether it's domestically or internationally, and how much that hurts people. Can you just speak a little bit more to that, Mr. Epstein? And then I'd like Ms. Jackson to speak to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem globally and in the U.S. I mean, so energy poverty basically means you can't afford to use a lot of energy, and you need to use a lot of energy to have a modern life, to have abundant food, clothing, shelter, medical care, et cetera. So every single thing we do to restrict the availability of energy, and as I mentioned, by restricting fossil fuels and by forcing us to pay money for uneconomic alternatives, both of those restrict the availability of energy. We make every single person poorer in the world, really, but particularly the poorest people feel it the most. And I just want to give a mention of, we have 3 billion people in the world using less electricity than a typical American refrigerator. We have 6 billion people who use an amount of energy people in this room would consider totally unacceptable. The world is desperately poor, and what they want to do is rise out of poverty, and that requires energy. And for the foreseeable future, that means we need more fossil fuels. That's why I said to one of the representatives, we need more fossil fuels, not less. That's what I talk about in Fossil Future. So it's just crazy to think we're sacrificing billions of people's opportunities in the name of preventing, a degree or two of warming, when we've already shown we're incredibly good at dealing with a warmer planet. And by the way, far more people still die of cold than of heat. So there's nothing to say even a warmer planet is worse objectively. But a warmer planet with abundant energy is a great planet. A colder planet or the same planet with no energy is a terrible planet.
It's my understanding that burning wood actually is producing more energy on the planet still than solar and wind does.
They juice up renewable numbers using that. If they want to say X% renewable, they like to add hydro, even though the green movement is anti-hydro, anti-large hydro. And yeah, in Europe, often they juice up the renewable numbers they often buy wood pellets from America, take them across the sea with oil, and then they burn them there, and they call that renewable.
So oil tankers going across the ocean to...
With wood made using diesel equipment in the United States. So this just points to a lot of this is a scam. If you think CO2 emissions are a grave threat, then you have to recognize the only way to deal with that is to make people poorer. But we have to have an honest conversation. You can't say we're going to restrict fossil fuels, we're going to force you to use uneconomic things, and you're going to become rich, let alone do it randomly to various cronies, which is what the IRA did. So it's a very dishonest conversation right now.
And nothing has brought more prosperity and industry to the world than fossil fuels. And a wealthy country like the United States, which is harmed by these ridiculous, unrealistic policies, far worse for third world countries, poorer nations, who we pretend we want to help as we try to force upon them our woke policies here. I wanted to have you talk a little bit about Europe, Ms. Fergat-Roth and Ms. Jackson, but Ms. Jackson, I'll let you just just tack on about what you were saying about lower income folks or minorities disproportionately impacted by these policies.
Absolutely. Energy poverty is when you have to spend more than 6% of your income on your energy needs. This country has forced everybody into energy poverty, but energy poverty leads to food insecurity, and food insecurity is causing right now developmental issues in children that's growing up right now. This is affecting family formations. It's affecting marriages. So what we're doing is putting people in a dangerous position that they're even setting their thermostats and living in unhealthy conditions in their homes because of their fear of energy poverty because they can't pay their bills. How are we not thinking about the impacts to people when we're thinking about these policies?
My time's expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting Ms. Jackson answer. Thank you to our witnesses.
Thank you, my colleague.